It's 1963, a small village in the Mekong Delta. American advisors crouch in a rice paddy, pinned down by Viet Cong fire. The enemy melts into the jungle after every burst. The Americans return fire with their new M14 rifles. Heavy, long, powerful, designed for open European battlefields, not this suffocating green hell. One American soldier spots something. A Viet Cong fighter drops his weapon during retreat. The soldier picks it up. It's still warm, compact, curved magazine, wooden stock dark with sweat and humidity. It's an AK-47. He pulls the trigger. The weapon roars to life. No jam, no hesitation. The soldier keeps firing. Later, he'll tell his commanding officer something that will echo through Pentagon halls. This thing works better than ours. Halfway around the world, two rifles are about to collide. One born in the rubble of Stalingrad, the other in the laboratories of American innovation. Over the next 2 decades, these weapons won't just arm soldiers. They'll define them. They'll shape conflicts. They'll become symbols of everything their nations stood for. The AK-47, brutal, simple, unstoppable. The M16, precise, technological, revolutionary. Which one was better? Which one won? And why does the answer still matter today? This is Mikhail Kalashnikov. He's 19 years old, a tank commander in the Red Army. It's October 1941. His T-34 has just taken a direct hit from German artillery near Bryansk. Shrapnel tears through his shoulder and chest. He's bleeding out in a field hospital when he overhears 2 soldiers talking. Our rifles jam in the cold. The Germans have better weapons. We're dying because of our guns. Kalashnikov's lying there, wounded, angry, and something crystallizes in his mind. The Soviet Union needs a better rifle. Not someday. Now. He starts sketching designs on whatever paper he can find. Notebook margins, medical charts, anything. By now, it's 1942. Kalashnikov's recovered enough to work. He's not a trained engineer. He's a sergeant, a tank mechanic. But he understands something the academics don't. A weapon has to work in hell. Mud, snow, sand, blood, frozen fingers, panicked soldiers with no training. The rifle has to work anyway. He designs and redesigns, dozens of prototypes. The Soviet military keeps rejecting them. Too heavy, too complex, not powerful enough. But Kalashnikov keeps going. He's obsessed. Every rejection just makes him more determined. Fast forward to 1946. The Red Army announces a competition. They need a new assault rifle, something to replace the aging rifles that barely got them through the war. Kalashnikov enters his latest design. This time, it's different. The weapon uses a 7.62 by 39mm cartridge. Less powerful than a full rifle round, more powerful than a pistol. The sweet spot for an automatic weapon. The gas system is brilliant in its simplicity. When you fire, gas from the barrel pushes a piston. The piston cycles the action, ejects the spent casing, chambers a new round, all in a fraction of a second. But here's the genius. Kalashnikov builds in what engineers call tolerance, loose parts, deliberate gaps between components. In precision engineering, this would be a flaw. In combat engineering, it's salvation. Mud gets in the action, the loose parts keep moving. Dust and sand, they fall through the gaps. The rifle doesn't jam, it just keeps firing. In 1947, Kalashnikov's rifle wins the trials. The Red Army runs it through every test imaginable. They freeze it, bury it in sand, drag it through mud, drop it from trucks. Then they fire it. Every time, it works. By 1949, the Soviet Army officially adopts it. Mikhail Kalashnikov's design becomes the Avtomat Kalashnikova model 1947, the AK-47. Within a decade, the Soviet Union will manufacture millions of them. They'll give them away to allies, to revolutionaries, to anyone fighting American interests. The rifle will spread across the globe like a virus. By the 1960s, you could find AK-47s in Vietnam, Cuba, Algeria, Egypt, Angola. Everywhere the Cold War touched, the AK followed. But the rifle was more than a weapon. It was a statement. Look how simple we are, the Soviets seemed to say. Look how practical. While you Americans obsess over perfection, we build tools that work. The AK-47 embodied Soviet philosophy. Functionality over elegance, reliability over precision, mass production over individual craftsmanship. A peasant army could maintain these rifles with minimal training. A child soldier could learn to use one in an afternoon, and they did, by the millions. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, America is building something completely different. This is Eugene Stoner. He's 34 years old, working for a small California company called Armalite. It's 1957. The U.S. military has just adopted the M14 rifle, but Stoner thinks they've made a mistake. The M14 fires a massive 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO round, powerful enough to drop a man at 800 yards, but it's heavy. It climbs when you fire on automatic. Most soldiers can't control it. And in the jungles where America's about to fight its next war, you don't need to shoot someone 800 yards away. You need to shoot someone 50 yards away before they shoot you. Stoner has a radical idea. What if we made the rifle smaller? Lighter? What if we used a smaller caliber round that a soldier could actually control on full automatic? He designs the AR-15. It fires a .223 caliber round, later standardized as 5.56 by 45 millimeter NATO. The bullet is tiny compared to traditional rifle rounds. Military brass hate it at first. They think it's too weak, a toy. But Stoner understands something about modern combat. It's not about killing enemy soldiers. It's about removing them from the fight. A smaller, faster bullet does something interesting. It tumbles when it hits human tissue. It fragments. A soldier hit by a 5.56 millimeter round might survive, but he's out of the battle, and now his buddies have to carry him. One shot takes 3 people out of the fight. The AR-15 weighs just 6 pounds empty. The M14 weighs nearly 11. A soldier can carry twice as much ammunition, fire twice as many rounds. In close quarters combat, that's the difference between living and dying. Armalite patents the design, but they don't have the manufacturing capacity to produce rifles for the military. So in 1959, they sell the rights to Colt. Colt sees the potential immediately. They market the rifle aggressively to the Air Force, which needs something compact for base security. Then they get creative. July 4th, 1960. A Colt executive arranges a demonstration for Curtis LeMay, the Air Force Chief of Staff. They set up watermelons as targets. LeMay fires the AR-15. The watermelons explode. LeMay is sold. The Air Force begins the process of adoption, and within a few years, thousands of rifles start flowing to military units. They call it the M16. But getting the rifle into the hands of ground troops takes longer. The Army has just spent millions adopting the M14. They don't want to admit they chose wrong. Political pressure builds. Meanwhile, something's happening in Southeast Asia that will force the issue. Vietnam, It's 1965. The first wave of American combat troops lands in Da Nang. They're carrying M14 rifles. Within weeks, they're encountering Viet Cong armed with AK-47s. The Americans are getting outgunned. The problem isn't just the weapons, it's the environment. Vietnam is humid, muddy, wet. The M14 is a precision instrument designed for European conditions. The mechanisms are tight. The weapon is unforgiving. Soldiers have to keep it immaculate. In the jungle, that's impossible. By 1966, the Army starts issuing M16s to troops in Vietnam. Finally, American soldiers have something that can match the AK-47. Lighter, higher rate of fire, more controllable. Reports from the field are positive at first, then the rifles start jamming. Not occasionally, constantly. Soldiers are dying because their weapons won't fire. They're found dead with cleaning rods stuck in their barrels, trying desperately to clear jams during firefights. Letters home describe the horror.
Our rifles don't work! We're being killed because our rifles don't work!
The media picks up the story. Congressional investigations begin. The military scrambles to figure out what went wrong. Turns out, the problem isn't the rifle, it's everything around it. Eugene Stoner designed the AR-15 to fire a specific type of gunpowder, IMR powder. It burns clean, leaves minimal residue. But when the military adopted the rifle, they changed the powder specification. They started using ball powder instead. It was cheaper, more available, but it burned dirty. Carbon and residue built up in the rifle's gas system. The weapon fouled quickly. Then there's the cleaning kit problem, or rather, the lack of one. The military issued M16s to soldiers in Vietnam without cleaning kits, without cleaning instructions. Some troops were told the rifle was self-cleaning. It wasn't. No rifle is. The early M16s also had a chrome-lined chamber issue. Stoner's original design included chrome lining to prevent corrosion and reduce friction. The military removed it to save money. In Vietnam's humid climate, the chambers corroded. Spent casings stuck. The extractor couldn't pull them out. The rifle jammed. One more problem. The magazines. The early magazines had weak springs and aluminum followers. In combat conditions, they deformed, failed to feed rounds properly. More jams. So you had soldiers in a jungle war carrying rifles that jammed constantly without cleaning equipment, facing an enemy armed with AK-47s that never jammed. It was a disaster. Many Marines in Vietnam quickly learned not to trust the early M16. The rifle's unchrome-lined chamber, poor battlefield maintenance guidance, and bad ammunition caused constant jams. Some Marines and soldiers began picking up AK-47s from fallen NVA and VC fighters. Not because they liked the enemy, but because the AK fired every time. The M16's reputation in Vietnam became toxic. Soldiers called it the Mattel rifle, after the toy company. They filed complaints. They wrote congressmen. In one infamous incident, a Marine's parents received a letter from their son asking them to send him a rifle from home because the M16 couldn't be trusted. Congressional hearings in 1967 forced the military's hand. They had to fix the rifle or abandon it. Abandoning it would be admitting the entire M16 program was a failure. That wasn't politically acceptable. So they fixed it. The military redesigned the rifle. They added chrome lining to the chamber and barrel. They included a forward assist, a device to manually chamber around if it didn't seat properly. They issued proper cleaning kits with instructions. They trained soldiers on maintenance. They even printed comic books explaining how to care for the weapon. Most importantly, they changed the powder specification back to something closer to Stoner's original design. By 1968, the improved M16A1 started reaching troops in Vietnam. It worked. Suddenly, soldiers who'd been terrified of the rifle started trusting it. The jamming problems diminished dramatically. The M16 began proving what Stoner had designed it to do, but the damage was done. An entire generation of soldiers went through Vietnam believing the AK-47 was the superior weapon, and in those early years, they weren't wrong. So here's the question. Once both rifles were working properly, which one was actually better? It depends on what you mean by better. Let's talk about reliability. The AK-47 wins this category without question. You can abuse an AK-47 in ways that would destroy any other rifle. Bury it in sand, freeze it in ice, set it on fire and put it out with swamp water. It will still fire. That's not marketing. That's engineering reality. The AK's gas system is overgassed. It uses more pressure than necessary to cycle the action. This means the weapon fires reliably, even when it's filthy. The loose tolerances mean dirt and debris don't stop the mechanism. The heavy recoil spring keeps things moving even under extreme conditions. The M16, even after improvements, requires more maintenance. It's a more precise instrument. The gas system is tuned for efficiency, not tolerance. The tighter tolerances mean better accuracy, but also more vulnerability to fouling. In a long-term survival situation where you can't clean your weapon regularly, you want the AK. But now let's talk about accuracy. This is where the M16 dominates. The 5.56mm round travels faster than the 7.62 by 39mm. Flatter trajectory, less bullet drop over distance. The M16's sights are superior. The rifle's lighter recoil means faster follow-up shots. A trained soldier can put rounds on target faster and more accurately with an M16 than with an AK-47. At 300 yards, a good shooter with an M16 can hit a man-sized target consistently. With an AK-47, that's much harder. The AK's heavy recoil and less precise sights make distance shooting difficult. Effective range? The M16 is rated to 500 yards, the AK-47 to about 380 yards. In practical combat conditions, the difference is even more pronounced. Weight matters too. The M16 weighs about 7.2 pounds loaded. The AK-47 weighs about 9.5 pounds loaded. That 2-pound difference multiplies over a long patrol. Add ammunition, and the gap widens. A soldier can carry 210 rounds of 5.56mm for the same weight as 90 rounds of 7.62 by 39mm. In a firefight, more ammunition means more options. Suppressive fire, sustained engagement, the ability to keep shooting when your enemy runs dry. But there's another factor: training time. You can teach someone to use an AK-47 in a few hours. Point, pull trigger, change magazine, clear jam, done. The weapon is intuitive. The safety lever is huge and obvious. The magazine locks in with a rock and lock motion that's nearly impossible to screw up. The M16 takes longer to master. The magazine release is a button. The bolt catch is small. The charging handle is different from almost every other rifle. The forward assist is confusing to new users. Proper maintenance requires more knowledge and discipline. For a professional army with time to train, the M16's complexity isn't a problem. For a militia or insurgent force, the AK's simplicity is a massive advantage. This explains something important about global weapon distribution. The AK-47 became the rifle of revolutionaries, terrorists, and irregular forces. The M16 became the rifle of professional militaries and special operations forces. It's not just about which weapon is better, it's about which weapon matches your force structure. By the 1970s, both rifles had proven themselves in combat, but their impact extended far beyond the battlefield. The AK-47 became a cultural icon. It appears on the flag of Mozambique. It's featured in countless movies, music videos, and political posters. Mikhail Kalashnikov's creation became synonymous with revolution, resistance, and rebellion. Estimates suggest there are between 75 and 100 million AK-47s and variants in circulation worldwide. The weapon has been manufactured in dozens of countries: Russia, China, Romania, Egypt, North Korea. Each country made their own modifications, but the core design remained Kalashnikov's. The rifle's ubiquity created a dark reality. AK-47s arm child soldiers in Africa. They fuel gang violence in Latin America. They enable terrorism in the Middle East. The weapon's reliability and simplicity make it perfect for people who shouldn't have weapons at all. Kalashnikov himself struggled with this legacy. In interviews late in his life, he expressed regret about how his invention was used. He designed it to defend his country, not to arm criminals and terrorists. But once you put a design into the world, you lose control of it. The M16 took a different path. It became the standard rifle for NATO forces and American allies. It spawned an entire family of weapons. The M4 carbine, shorter and lighter. The Canadian C7. The British L85 moved to the same 5.56mm NATO ammunition, partly because of Stoner's design influence on Western standards. Even though mechanically it's a completely different rifle, the M16 also changed how civilians thought about firearms. Eugene Stoner's AR-15 design became the most popular rifle in American civilian hands. Millions of AR-15s are owned by American civilians for sport shooting, hunting, and home defense. The rifle's modularity and ease of customization made it a platform rather than just a weapon. This civilian popularity created its own controversy. Mass shootings involving AR-15 variants sparked debates about gun control. The rifle's military appearance made it a target for politicians seeking to ban assault weapons. The same features that made it effective for soldiers, lightweight, high capacity, ease of use, made it effective for people with evil intentions. Neither Kalashnikov nor Stoner set out to change the world. They set out to solve engineering problems. But the solutions they created shaped the last 60 years of human conflict. Let's talk about evolution. Both rifles continued developing long after their initial designs. The AK-47 became the AKM in 1959. Lighter, easier to manufacture, used stamped metal receivers instead of milled ones. The AKM became the most common version of Kalashnikov's design. In 1974, the Soviets introduced the AK-74, chambered in a smaller 5.45 by 39mm round. They'd learned from the Americans that smaller, faster bullets had advantages. The AK-74 had less recoil, flatter trajectory, and soldiers could carry more ammunition. Modern Russian forces now use the AK-12, the latest evolution. It has Picatinny rails for optics and accessories, improved ergonomics, better accuracy. But the core system is still Kalashnikov's gas-operated, rotating bolt design from 1947. The M16 evolved into the M16A2 in 1983. Heavier barrel, improved sights, 3-round burst instead of full automatic. The A2 fixed remaining issues from Vietnam and improved the rifle's durability. Then came the M4 carbine in 1994. Shorter barrel, collapsible stock, perfect for urban combat and vehicle operations. The M4 became the dominant rifle for U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan. It maintained the M16's accuracy and reliability while being more adaptable to modern combat scenarios. Today's M4A1 has a rail system for mounting optics, lights, lasers, and grips. Soldiers can configure the rifle for specific missions. Long-range precision, add a scope and bipod, close quarters, shortened barrel and holographic sight. The modularity is unmatched. Modern militaries have access to both rifle families. Which do they choose? Russia and former Soviet states still issue AK variants. They work. They're cheap to produce. Soldiers are trained on them. The infrastructure exists to support them. Why change? The United States and NATO forces standardized on M16 and M4 variants. The accuracy advantage matters in modern warfare where rules of engagement require positive identification before shooting. The lighter ammunition means soldiers can carry more, important in extended operations far from resupply. But here's something interesting. Many special operations forces worldwide use both. They'll carry an M4 as their primary weapon, but keep an AK variant as a backup or for blending in with local forces. In Afghanistan and Iraq, it wasn't uncommon to see American special forces carrying captured AKs because they could use locally available ammunition and maintain cover. The rifles have influenced each other too. Modern AKs incorporate rails and modular features inspired by the M16 platform. The latest M4 variants increased the gas port size and loosened tolerances slightly to improve reliability in harsh conditions, a nod to AK philosophy. So, after 60 years of competition, evolution, and combat testing across every continent, which rifle won? Neither. Both. The AK-47 won the numbers game, more manufactured, more distributed, more influential in conflicts around the world. Its simplicity and reliability make it the people's rifle, for better and worse. The M16 won the technology game. More accurate, more adaptable, more sophisticated. It represents the cutting edge of small arms development and influenced the direction of rifle design for professional militaries. But here's the deeper truth. These rifles represent fundamentally different philosophies of warfare. The AK-47 is Soviet doctrine-made metal. Mass production. Overwhelming firepower. Weapons that work for conscript armies with minimal training. Functionality over sophistication. Good enough is good enough. The M16 is American doctrine-made metal. Technological superiority. Precision over power. Weapons that maximize the potential of professional soldiers with extensive training. Continuous improvement. Always pushing for the next advantage. These philosophies extended beyond rifles. They shaped tank design, aircraft development, naval strategy. The Cold War was fought between these competing visions of how to wage war. Vietnam became the testing ground. Both rifles proved themselves, eventually. But Vietnam also revealed that superior technology doesn't guarantee victory. That training, logistics, and political will matter as much as the weapons soldiers carry. Iraq and Afghanistan taught similar lessons. American forces with M4 carbines dominated conventional engagements, but insurgents with AK-47s fought for years using asymmetric tactics. The better rifle didn't end the wars. Today, both designs are approaching obsolescence. Modern militaries are exploring new technologies, polymer-cased ammunition, smart optics with ballistic computers, rifles that can program rounds to explode in mid-air. The future of small arms looks nothing like 1947 or 1963, but the AK-47 and M16 will remain in service for decades. They're too widespread, too proven, too embedded in military infrastructure. Soldiers born today will likely carry one or the other 20 years from now. Mikhail Kalashnikov died in 2013 at age 94. He lived to see his rifle become the most prolific weapon in human history. In his final years, he wrote a letter to the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, expressing pain over the deaths his invention caused. Eugene Stoner died in 1997 at age 74. He continued designing weapons until the end, always refining, always improving. The AR-15 platform remains his most enduring legacy. Neither man set out to create icons. They set out to solve problems. How do you make a rifle that works when everything else fails? How do you make a rifle that helps soldiers win? They answered those questions in different ways. Both answers were right. Both answers were wrong. The rifles that divided modern warfare weren't just pieces of metal and wood. They were manifestations of how two superpowers saw the world. They were tools that shaped conflicts and symbols that defined them. And in the end, maybe that's the real lesson. The weapon matters less than the hand that holds it. The design matters less than the doctrine that employs it. The rifle matters less than the reason you're fighting. The AK-47 and M16 will be remembered not because one was better than the other, but because together they defined an era of proxy wars and ideological conflict. An era when two visions of the future collided in rice paddies, deserts, jungles, and mountains around the world. The rifles divided modern warfare, but the men who carried them, on both sides, were just trying to survive, trying to complete the mission, trying to come home. The rifles are still here. Many of those men are not. That's the real cost of dividing modern warfare. Not the rifles, the lives.